So today I have a very good question in the comments and I want to answer it. And Steven Piano Music asks, who understands and sees this whole psychological self? Isn't that the same separate self? Oh, I'm projecting psychological time onto everything. I should stop that. Even if I imagine, I don't have to stop it. It's an illusion. I'm still the separate self trying to let it all be. I'm being the psychological self trying not to do something in the future. You go on stating that the thought only a few can reach enlightenment, only by grace, I'm never going to be able to do this, is part of the same psychological process. Why wouldn't I don't have to do anything be too? Thanks for the video as always. I'm not replacing one thought with another. And that's basically what you, if I can sense it right, what you assume that I'm doing this. Because we can see that first you say, oh, I'm projecting psychological time onto everything, I should stop that. That's not what you are supposed to think. In my last video I was saying that I'm not giving you something to learn so that you can accumulate more knowledge, so that you can repeat this knowledge in the form of thoughts, because that won't lead you to anywhere. It's more like a pointer, a realization. It's not like the thought, I'm thirsty. It's like the knowing that you are thirsty. There's a difference. So when you say, only a few can reach enlightenment, only by grace, I'm never going to be able to do this. That's a thought. So, and it won't lead you to anywhere because it's just an object appearing in space. But I'm not saying that you should replace this thought with the thought, I don't have to do anything. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter what thought says, as long as you are mistaking yourself for that thought, then you are trapped in psychological time. And in the beginning you said, who understands and sees this whole psychological self? There's the assumption that in order for there to be a seeing, there needs to be someone, a personal self, that is doing the seeing. But it's like the sun is shining, but it's not the self that is doing the shining, but it's just what's happening. Therefore, I'm saying there is just an impersonal seeing in which a self appears, not the other way around. It's not a self that is seeing, like there's a self and it's seeing, but there is seeing in which there are thoughts that are happening, which are also impersonal, but they pretend to be personal because there was conditioning, and through that conditioning there was also an arising of emotions that feel personal. But once you realize that you are not the seer but the seeing, and you can realize or see that it doesn't matter what you think. You could be in the position of the enlightened one, so to speak, and look at the thought that says, I'm not enlightened yet, and it doesn't matter. You cannot even celebrate the fact that you are enlightened because you are no longer identified with a thought that says, I'm enlightened, because you're just this impersonal seeing. So all these concepts just fall away, and it doesn't matter anymore what you are thinking or what thought says, because it's seeing that it's no longer you, the self, that is thinking. See, if you say, oh, I'm projecting psychological time onto everything, I should stop that. That is also seen. You don't even have to stop that thought if it appears. I don't have to stop it, it's all an illusion, is also a thought. But if you believe that you are the one that's thinking that thought, because you believe that it brings you something, then you are right by saying that you are still the separate self. So it doesn't matter what you think or what you believe, but what matters is as what do you know yourself? How are you watching the thought? Can you see a difference between pure observation and the self, the psychological self? And once you see that there is just this pure seeing, then thoughts like that can appear, and there's no problem. And then you won't be the separate self, but you will be the timeless witness of the separate self. A thing that is unchanging. So maybe, and this comment has a few likes, so maybe there are more people who can relate to this problem or are going through this problem, trying to find their true self, so to speak, and always trying to create a thought that brings you further to the goal of enlightenment, so to speak. It's really the best way to witness, to see what I'm talking about, is by being attentive. So when you are caught up in a story in your mind for decades, maybe, then it's very hard, as you are being identified with this, to go away from this, because every attempt to go away from the psychological me comes from the me. The only thing that is not bound to this psychological self is attention. And in the beginning, it can feel like it is an attention that you have had in school, because there is still this feeling of being so attentive it even feels like tension. But it's not supposed to be like that forever. So when you are attentive and you're really listening with all of your senses, it feels like a little bit of tension because you're focusing on what's going on outside. So, but what happens, it can be a very helpful thing, at least it was very helpful to me, because as you stay attentive, thoughts don't have a lot of power anymore, and you start to witness the difference between the ego, who is self-absorbed, and pure attention, which is just here. It has no intention. It is just aware. You can see the difference when you are practicing attention. There is a difference between the pure witness that is aware of what is, and then when you're doing this, you're going to fall back into the egoic self that is thinking about, how should I do it? What can I do? What am I supposed to do? What's the right thing to do? What should I think? What should I practice? You start to see the difference between the complex psychological self who wants to find the right way and the simple fact of witnessing. And you're not supposed to stay in this tense attention. But when you're staying as this attention for a little bit, at least, you will see that the one that's attending is not bound or is not originating from the psychological self, but it is simply the presence itself, the being itself. So it feels like your attention, you are extending your attention outward into the world, and you're being present as you are aware of objects and noises and sensations. But as you are realizing that the one who's extending the attention on the outer world is not the ego, then you can stop. You can relax that attention again and just abide as what you already are, in fact, right now. And then it will be clear that you are not the noise. But every thought that appears is simply just an object that is appearing in consciousness. So you can even use thoughts as meditation objects. So instead of first, before you have done the practice, you see thoughts as distractions that say, what should I do? What am I supposed to do? Because you're identified. But as soon as you recognize yourself as the pure awareness, which is not as someone, then you will be able to use thoughts who claim to be a personal self. You are able to use those personal thoughts as meditation objects. And therefore the sense of freedom comes into play. And you will go deeper. And you will meet yourself on a level that has nothing to do with the ego. So it really doesn't matter what the thought says or what you are supposed to think. I'm not saying that one is supposed to replace one thought with another. I'm saying recognize yourself as the pure awareness that is aware of this whole default mode network activity of the self. You know, that there's a certain network in the brain that is called the DMN. It's responsible for creating the self. And as you are recognizing yourself as pure awareness, it will slow down. And that's the whole magical part about it. Because then you will have the actual experience of not being separate from life itself. Not because it's a mystical experience, but because you're simply seeing the fact that you cannot be separated from life.